Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and he's back, Mr. Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and guys, I haven't been to Charlotte lately. Anything new going on?
Nah, nothing. It's pretty much catch can here.
Okay.
And on the road, bandit style, Mr. Sean Keenan.
Heidi wants you to get her name out your mouth.
He's
driving 28 hours to prison in somewhere in the southeast, so we can't disturb him.
Nope, you can't because you got to go meet we'll talk about that in the second half. But today, everybody, we're going to be reviewing Luke Cage, the new Netflix series from Marvel. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but this show was so big, it knocked out Netflix for about 2 hours on Saturday.
I didn't hear that.
Nerds took down Netflix. Nerds took down Netflix.
It is. It's quite the phenomenon, and again, you see it in the trailer and everything, so it's not like I'm giving away a spoiler here. But I am already seeing on like eBay and other places people selling bullet-ridden hoodies.
Okay, and I like it how you're worried about a spoiler talking about the hoodies, but we are going to talk about the first 7 episodes in graphic detail.
Exactly. So I just wanted to let you know right ahead. Yeah, as Bruce said, first 7 episodes here. We're going to go all into everything. Spoilers will abound. But from what I've seen from a lot of people on Facebook and Twitter and other social media places, people have been watching this. And,
yes, indeed.
And in very often kind of Marvel style, it is a race to the finish, boy. And we've all 3 of us so far have already seen all 12 episodes of 13. I'm superstitious. Yeah, that's a ticket.
I'll tell you, man, nothing beats marathoning through 13 episodes of Luke Cage than going directly to a Renaissance festival, because that's what I did this weekend.
Huzzah. I don't wow, so you went from one thing that was like wildly entertaining to a Renaissance festival. That's just, I feel bad for you now.
It's not really.
I've never actually been to a Renaissance festival. I absolutely have no I don't want to go at all ever.
Well, you shouldn't, because it's an outdoor strip mall with medieval things. The only thing that's worth going is a beer and a turkey leg, and you can get that for pennies on the dollar.
Man, I don't know why I've never been to the Renaissance Festival there in North Carolina, but I'll tell you, the one I went to in Ohio had full-on jousting with broken lances. It was pretty cool, man.
No, there was some of that at the one here, but it's still super Lamesville. No, thank you. The only way that you go is like, Bruce, I can forgive you because you have kids that are of the right age. You bring them there. I'm sure they had a blast. To see it through the kids' eyes, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, they got a lesson in cleavage they've never had before.
Wow, Daddy, what's all of that? Well, those are what we call chowder buckets on the HMP, son.
Exactly. And I got a wizard hat and a staff.
Well, with your other podcast, I figured that's what you
works real well.
I figured you already had like a whole closet full like Batman at some point.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
You got to build it up. It's just like, this is my formal wizard wear.
Are you hoping that one day you're going to be able to go to a convention for podcasting and you show up where you're dressed as a wizard and you're like, hello?
That would be amazing, is that he goes dressed as a wizard, and that's what people recognize him for. They just go, Chubby Wizard guy.
Yeah, man.
And then
I've already got the gray beard to match it, so I'm working on it.
And the great part is you go up to him and you're just like, oh, thanks, you listen to my podcast? They go, podcast.
Yeah, perfect.
But so when he's not going to Renaissance festivals, he's mainlining Luke Cage, as we hope that you've all done this weekend. And so we're going to get on into it, because I'm sure we've got a boatload here to talk about. So let's go ahead and listen to the official trailer for Luke Cage.
Still not sure what I am. I'm just living my life, day to day.
You should be out there helping people.
You think I asked for any of this? I was put in some tank like an exotic fish. Came out with abilities. I just want to be left the hell alone.
Well, that would be a waste.
Harlem, perpetual symbol of hope and prosperity. Too much happens in the shadows. People fear what they can't see.
This place is our reputation, our legacy, our blood. Made every businessman squeeze them hard. Everybody wants to be the king.
Sometimes if you want justice, you have to get it yourself.
Hungry arms. The hungry arms.
Give us the money. I don't like your tone. You have my word, ma'am. I've got you.
I'm from a city where having a heart is not suggested. I'm a maverick, a tapping backs, I'm a savage. I'm cleaning braces with tongue and vacuum.
You wanna go to war? I'll take you to war.
You might be bulletproof, but Harlem ain't.
This city is supposed to represent our hopes and dreams. You have to fight for what's right every single day.
Why don't you just tell us your name?
The whole neighborhood is yapping about how 2 goons got the beat down last night.
I heard it was 4 guys.
All right, that was a trailer for Luke Cage. Again, first 7 episodes we'll be talking about this week. IMDb plotline: given super strength and durability by a sabotage experiment, a wrongly accused man escapes prison to become a superhero for hire. This is starring Mike Coulter, Mahershala Ali, Simone Missick, Theo Rossi, Alfred Woodward, and more. Before we get into it, it's funny because I saw a couple articles that things had like kind of linked up and everything, and people going, a new black superhero, and I'm like, no, I think Luke Cage has been around for a while. My guess is our man Bruce Leslie got a little bit on that for us.
Yeah, he started way back in 1972. Luke Cage, Power Man, Hero for Hire, created by Archie Goodwin and John Romita Sr. And 1972, like I said, you may be surprised to hear this, but his first appearance was a little less than a year after the premiere of the motion picture Shaft and Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song.
Oh, yeah.
I think maybe there's a little influence there on where that character came from. What do you guys think?
Just a touch.
Yeah. Now, something interesting about those motion picture influences is that the lead actor from Sweet Sweetback is the only time on record that the Screen Actors Guild recognized chlamydia as a work-related injury. And if you don't believe me, look it up. Melvin Van Peebles, folks.
And to hear about a great movie that's about that, just a movie called it's just called Badass. It's actually directed by his son that documents the making of that movie in narrative form. Great movie to check out.
Oh, man, I got to check that one out.
It's really good.
Luke Cage grew up in Harlem, where he fell in with a street gang that was called the Rivals, who frequently fought in the streets with a gang called the Diablos. Though you'd think their name would have been Los Diablos, but you get the picture. It was a real Jets and Sharks kind of dynamic there. Now, eventually, young Carl saw that his petty criminal activity was hurting his family, so he decided to go legit. But you fellas know what the thug life is all about. It's blood in, blood out. So it's not that easy to just walk away.
Tell me about it.
Now, Carl's best friend, Willis, is the leader of the Rivals, and Willis's honey is a sweet sister named Reva. Now, I think you'd have to be a blind fool not to see where this is going. Reva gets fed up with Willis and all his beef on the street, so she dumps that turkey and goes into the well-muscled arms of the reformed gangster with a heart of gold, Carl. Now, Willis don't like that. No, sir. He don't like that one bit. So he does what we all do when our girl leaves us for some other cat. He plants heroin in his apartment and calls the 5-0. Come on, Sean. Admit, you've considered it.
No, more than considered.
Well, Carl goes down for the crime, even though he had nothing to do with it. Apparently, just saying I was framed wasn't a very effective legal defense for a black man in the 1970s. So Carl gets sentenced to some hard time, and not just in any prison, but in Seagate off the coast of Georgia. Imagine Alcatraz, but about 30 degrees hotter and 40 degrees more redneck. Now, Carl becomes the target of a sadistic guard named Albert Billy Bob Rackham. And it's important to know that his mama named him Albert, but he earned the name Billy Bob. Now, research scientist Dr. Noah Burstein recruits Lucas as a volunteer for an experimental cell regeneration-based project on a variant of the super soldier serum. And it just goes to show that there ain't no experiment like a prison experiment. So Burstyn immerses Lucas in an electrical field conducted by an organic chemical compound. And when he leaves Lucas alone in the bath, the redneck Rackham sneaks in and alters the experiment's controls because he hopes that it either maims or kills Lucas. However, what it does is it accelerates the treatment past its intended limits, and it causes him to have these body-wide enhancements that give him super strength and durability. Carl gets out of the bath, uses his new abilities to bust out of prison and go back to Harlem, where he hides his identity by changing his name to Luke Cage and wearing a tiara. And you've really got to be a strong, confident man to pull off a tiara.
Yeah.
Now, he launches a career as a hero for hire, helping anyone who can meet his price. And he sets up shop above the Gym Theater, where he becomes friends with a film student named D.W. Griffith. And I guess Luke never saw Birth of a Nation. But one of the best things about Bronze Age Luke Cage is his rogues gallery, many of whom were also once members of his old street gang, the Rivals. There was Shades, and of course Shades was so named because he wore his sunglasses at night years before Tommy Two-Tone. Also, his sunglasses could shoot laser beams. Comanche was another rival-come superhero, and his gimmick was that he used a bow and arrow, but they were trick arrows, kind of like Hawkeye, but from the ghetto instead of the circus. And there was notorious drug dealer Cornell Cottonmouth, who it is important to note actually had the last name Cottonmouth in the comics. I think he was from the 147th Street Cottonmouth family, not to be confused with the Cottonmouths on 182nd. But Cottonmouth was the drug dealer from whom Willis stole the heroin that he used to send Luke to Seagate. Cottonmouth's weapon of choice, well, that was live snakes, as well as his two henchmen, Mike and Ike. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the feared queen of Harlem crime, Black Mariah, who very recently acquired a sidekick named White Jenny. But Black Mariah's criminal activities were built around the fact that she stole an ambulance and she would go pick up people who'd been shot, steal all their valuables, then dump their bodies. That was it. That was her mastermind of crime. That's some real highbrow organized crime there. I bet her defibrillator paddles weren't even charged. But eventually some folks hired Luke to find the bodies of their missing loved ones, and he discovered Mariah's scam and shut her down. Now, as the blaxploitation genre's popularity faded, Cage became unable to carry his own series, so he was paired up with another superhero who also was based on a popular type of cinema that was on the decline, martial arts, and that person was Iron Fist. And together, Power Man and Iron Fist formed Heroes for Hire, and they took on a life of their own. Knowing that Iron Fist will soon have his own Netflix series, I think it's inevitable that these two will soon team up on screen. What do you guys think?
I think it's going to be pretty, I think we got a pretty good lock on that.
I'd say
They
Vegas probably isn't taking that bet.
No, they'd be like, yeah, you want to take the against? We'll take that bet. Nothing over 200,000 we'll take. Yeah, but just, come on, bring that. But boy, what if you won that? You know, what if the odds of you winning them just Marvel just taking a really weird left turn and going, nope, don't want to see that.
Well, man, for some reason they didn't want to see Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. That kind of surprised me.
Yeah. So, yeah. Speaking of which, this is not the first time that we've actually seen Luke Cage in the Marvel television universe and everything. We got introduced to him last year in Jessica Jones season 1. And
right in Hell's Kitchen, baby.
Yeah, and so everybody was pretty excited. We're like, okay, we got a taste of this guy, and man, oh man, it primed you for what was to come. And I'll be honest with you guys, I did not think it would be as good as it was. And I'll show my hand, I guess, a little bit early, but from everything that I've seen from everyone, I don't think that I'm of a minority opinion here. This thing is great.
Yeah, it's pretty solid, man. Of course, we're focusing on the first half, and the first half I think is spectacular.
I got things to say about the second half, but we'll wait for that for next week. So where do we kind of want to start? Do we want to go on more of a you want to do like an overview first?
One thing I'll say, just starting from the beginning, when it first started out, I wasn't certain on the timeline here. I don't know if either of you guys were confused at the beginning, but I thought maybe this was supposed to happen before the events of Jessica Jones. Some things seemed out of place to me. So were you guys lost at all about exactly where this was supposed to be?
Yeah, I knew it was after New York. Because they, the kid on the street corner with the DVDs,
right?
But they don't mention it till later that Jessica, it's also after Jessica Jones. The part I don't understand, even now, after watching the entire series, is does this take place after Sokovia?
You know what? I don't have any idea on that. But my big question was before or after Jessica, because right from the get-go, I'm getting upset with the guy because, man, he's forgotten about Jessica awful quick here. First episode quick.
Well, I mean, it depends on how, and it's been a while since we've seen it, since I've seen it at least. I need to go back and really kind of see where their relationship left off in that series, because I don't remember how. I mean, obviously we saw, physically we saw, some stuff go down, but as far as like an actual, proper relationship goes, I can't remember exactly where they kind of left each other.
Well, I do remember it ends with them arguing over who actually owns the wagon wheel coffee table.
And I'll tell you what, man, if Jessica Jones isn't pregnant with Luke's baby by the end of Defenders, I'm going to start a riot.
I'm going to say by the end of season 2 for her. That makes more sense. You got to go through the stuff, man. You got to let the big, like the Defender series is just going to be an all out, just brawl, I guess.
Oh man, I just want to see it where they sort of say, Daredevil says, "Okay, Iron Fist, you go with me. We're going to check the roof," and then Luke goes, "Me and Jessica, we'll make sure the closet's safe." If you catch my drift. But it did kind of just seem a little. I was a little lost until Claire Temple shows up, just because in Jessica Jones he owned a bar. He owned a bar that he was running, and then here he's talking about getting paid in cash only, staying under the radar. He's sweeping floors and washing dishes, and I thought, well, this is going to end up with Pop's barbershop turning into the bar, which didn't happen.
Yeah.
But I kind of thought this was going to be something like setting us up to where this is going to end maybe where he meets Jessica Jones or something. I wasn't real sure where it was going. I was a little lost in the timeline at first.
So do we think that it's technically
I still don't know. I still couldn't tell you if this takes place after the second Avengers movie.
Because the bar is what really
care
throws
about the
it.
Avengers, though. I'm all about the Jessica Jones events.
But the bar is what really kind of throws it at the same time. So, but by the logic, we won't get into, like I said, we're going to keep the second half away. But by the logic of what happens at the end of the season here, something has to transpire between if in Jessica Jones takes place afterwards.
No, Jessica Jones clearly took place before this.
Well,
they didn't make it clear until Claire Temple showed up and said, "Remember when you had that bleeding in your skull? I'm Jessica's friend. I took care of you at her apartment." I mean, she makes clear that this is after Claire's already met him.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. That's gosh, I'm not sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Where this falls precisely within that timeline. That's a good question.
And I hate to be the person that asks this question, but he did show up fairly prominently in Jessica's show. So, Hell's Kitchen's only a medium distance subway ride away from Harlem. When all this is going down, maybe he does try to ask her to repay a favor, He could have used some help in this.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. It's one of the things that the movies do a bit better than all the Netflix shows is that, you have some character overlap, but not as much as I would like. How difficult would it be to have the actress who plays Jessica Jones just do a walkthrough?
Yeah, preferably slowly.
Well, I mean, I'll say this, we did get what was it? What's Trish talk on the radio? That's a little something.
Yeah, that was a little something. We did get Trish on the radio.
So I thought that was cool.
And we got Turk has been in all of the series. I think he's gotten the most screen time as a crossover character of anybody.
That's got to be awesome for that guy. Just like, I am not a superhero. I'm not even a giant supporting character. But boy, I'm getting the reps in. I like that.
But I do like it when he sort of drops the line in one of the early episode series, like, okay, that's it. I'm going back to Hell's Kitchen. Harlem's crazy.
Yeah, like, this is a bit much here. As crazy as it is over there, this is worse here. No doubt.
But we do, the first episodes where we kind of get to meet some of the major players, or at least the major players for the first half of the series. We meet Pop. What do you guys think about Pop there? The guy that owns the barbershop, has people put money in the swear jar. We even get a little flashback to how he got his nickname.
I think
it's good.
I think it's
go ahead, Adam. I'm sorry. I'll chime in.
No, it's okay. I think it's great. The whole thing to me is, Sean's down in the mean streets right now. The main part to me is like, and I've seen it over like the entire bit of this series. I've talked with other people about it. And one thing that I'll probably keep going back to is the authenticity of this entire thing. It's written by a black man. The entire series is. So this is someone who knows this experience and is putting it on paper for everyone to see. And it's very genuine in that way, and it doesn't feel like it's cobbled together for, here's what a white guy thinks, a black neighborhood is like. Here's what, the white guy thinks the barbershop is like. It is like, it feels like a very authentic experience, and I think that really comes down to the writing and the casting with this entire thing.
I totally agree with you. They throw the N-word around a little bit on this show. Mm-hmm. And in full disclosure, when the first time it drops, I literally went to IMDb to see who wrote this, because if it was white guys writing this show, my first reaction was, please let it be a white guy. Please let it be a white guy, because what I was hoping for was that it was a white guy, and then there would be an absolute firestorm of like, why does this guy think he knows what black life is like, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it was just a little disappointing that it was a black guy who wrote this whole thing.
But
you wanted to see it was somebody named like Nigel Stevens.
Yes, exactly.
This is what I think
Nigel
life on the
Stevens
streets
III,
is like in Harlem.
Oh, but
we're gonna have Nigel Stevens III eventually write the outline, or maybe a treatment for the Leslie verse.
That'll be good. Well, let's take a minute and mention the showrunner here. His last name's Coker. I think his first name's like Cho or Chio. But the guy before, he was the showrunner for Luke Cage, he was a hip hop journalist. So he really had a lot of interest in a lot of the music we're hearing here. He's got a rich background in musical journalism. And I would imagine in particular you, Adam, probably appreciated some of the needle drops we got in this show.
There is a lot of great music in this. And there's a little featurette that you can just kind of Google online. And it has a lot of the guys, because and it's not just one person. There are a ton of people working on the music for this thing, not only for the needle drop, not only for the, kind of original stuff. And it is astounding how good of a job that they did with the music within this entire thing. And it's varied. That's the best part. It's everything from kind of like old kind of, bluesy soul type stuff to, current hip hop type stuff to, just dramatic kind of strings and everything. And
not,
it is just
not
killer.
Just the needle drops, but the live performances had a little bit of a feeling of verisimilitude also.
Just amazing stuff. And it didn't feel like, kind of so many times when you see these live performances, quote unquote, live performances on shows and stuff, it's usually a band, usually full of actors who, when you watch them, that they don't know how to play instruments. And like, I can play instruments a little bit. I'm not the super versed, but I can tell if somebody knows how to play guitar. I look and I go, no. Or piano is another one that's like great to watch fakers in. And these people know what they're doing. And
I think it lives up to the gold standard, which was when the famous Nashville recording artists would stop by the Boar's Nest and play a concert at the end of the Dukes of Hazzard.
Yes, exactly. But
I'm the first and probably the last person to compare this to Dukes of Hazzard.
Probably.
So I'll leave it at that.
Put that on the Guinness Book of World Records. But it feels like everything is, and if they didn't, bravo. But it feels like everything was recorded live, which is a tough thing to do and make it sound really good, and to put that into the actual post itself. I was just the music in this entire thing is just so spot on.
And Also, just another interesting thing I ran across when I was reading a little bit about Coker, the showrunner here. He wrote the script for the movie Notorious, the movie about Notorious B.I.G. Mm-hmm. So, obviously that music journalism shows through a little bit there. And he was also once punched by a member of the Wu-Tang Clan during an interview. So I think that becomes interesting when we talk about the second half of the season.
Well, when you think about it, though, there's 87 members of the Wu-Tang Clan. So you're bound to be punched by one of them at some point of your life. I don't care who you are.
In full disclosure, it wasn't Method Man, so that'll come into play next week.
But I'll say this guy, I mean, in the movie Notorious is okay. This is just like, I'm so proud of this guy because this is such a far bigger step above and beyond what that I'll call so-so movie did.
Well, and all he did was write the script. He didn't have anything else other than that.
I don't even think the script was all that good. So if we're going to be frank about it, I don't even think the script was all that good.
Of course, you know how it goes. We don't know how much of what he wrote made it to the screen.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
Right. And also he probably used that as basically proof of concept that he's able to do this sort of work.
Hey, and if that's what got him this, God bless.
Hey, I think it was the showrunner for Ray Donovan. I've never watched that show, but I know some people like it.
I hear a lot of good things. I've never myself.
But anyway, so, we're talking about Notorious B.I.G. Mm-hmm. Well, we get to meet Cottonmouth here, Cornell Cottonmouth Stokes.
Yes.
And I think that actor steals the show from his first scene. But more importantly, he has that big picture of Biggie up on his wall that for some reason made me really want to go to Burger King.
I love the crown. It's pretty much so. That's Mahershala Ali. This dude he's one of these guys that's like he's not in the most things, but he's starting to get there. He's really starting to kind of jump up. So he played Remy in House of Cards. I think that's where most people would probably recognize him from.
He was awesome as Cottonmouth, man. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And we also find out that this questionable businessman, obvious criminal, he's executed this arms deal in the first episode. We find out that his cousin is a lady named Mariah Dillard, who's on the up and up, apparently. She's supposed to be legit. She's a city councilwoman or something like that. But then at the end of this first episode, we find out that Cottonmouth uses his thugs to get people to donate to her Harlem Renaissance. When we see the, I was worried. I was really worried we were going to make it through this whole first episode without any chance for Luke Cage to beat somebody down. But that all changes inside of Genghis Khan's. Mm-hmm. And once again, hate to be that guy, but if they're going to call it Genghis Khan's, it probably should have been a Mongolian grill and not a Chinese restaurant.
Listen, some of us don't have the listen, have you been to some of these places? They don't really. It's like, does this sound catchy? Yes. Okay, that's going to be the name of it. I think they just wanted something just goes like, hey, you know what? People in the neighborhood are going to remember this name. It's kind of a fun little play on words.
And I got to tell you, having Alfie Woodard play a scumbag in this show, she's great in the role. But seeing her play this role is a little bit like seeing Mr. Rogers in a porno movie, because
which is awesome. I mean, we all agree that's awesome.
Hi, neighbor.
But
won't you be my neighbor?
She doesn't play these roles. She doesn't get these roles very often, or if she does, she turns them down. But she took this role and she's great in it, and it's just surprising to see, how she is, how can she can stretch as an actress, really, because she usually plays a very good-hearted person, and she's actually playing against that in this role.
An interesting oversight that Marvel owned up to is that there was a little breakdown in communication between the TV arm and the movie arm, between Loeb and Feige, if you will, because she was cast as a totally separate character in Civil War.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, she had a small part where she's the mother of a young man who died. And then she's here, and then there was sort of like a press release they put out that said, yeah, we know she's in both shows, but know that it's a mistake. Those characters aren't the same person.
Oh, yeah, right, because she's the one who confronts Tony in the
Stark
hallway
at the college.
Yeah,
that's right. In Civil War, I totally forgot about that.
She's in it for 2 minutes, but darn, it's a great 2 minutes, and it's one of those things where it's just and it shows why she's so darn good in this one. Just a tour de force acting within 2 minutes to where you really everything that you need to know about that character, about her, and it carries a weight, and it makes Tony think in that sense, and she brings all of that verisimilitude right over to this show as well.
Plus, there's also the little tiny part of my brain that starts spinning a wheel that this is some kind of plot on behalf of Black Mariah to turn Iron Man against Luke Cage.
Ooh, that's listen, from your lips to Feige's ears, man.
It's kind of like what they did on Friends, where Lisa Kudrow was playing the other character on the other sitcom and also was on Friends.
Oh, I totally remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ursula.
Boy,
yeah, Ursula.
We've gone from like reviewing one of the one of the best black shows to going, hey, how white are we?
Hey, man, Aisha Tyler was on a few episodes.
That's true. That's all is forgiven.
But once we get into episode 2, there's this arms deal that goes down, and
can we? Because I got one more thing I want to say about the first episode.
Absolutely.
It is such a nice touch to have Luke Cage be the bartender, and they dress him up so he looks super handsome, and he's already handsome already. It's not a big stretch, but having him look super handsome, but they give him a jacket that's one size too small.
I love
that. That is such a nice touch, because a lesser writer would have just let him completely and utterly mac out and look awesome. And this show will not allow him to do that. And it's a really, really good bit of writing. It's very, very smart. And it's that little detail that makes this show different from a lot of other shows that are on television.
And it's not just useless. It points to another point in the story that makes that there's a reason why she notices, hey, he's not wearing what he should be wearing here. So this is not your normal job. So I mean, everything has a little purpose, and that's what's beautiful about it.
And when he takes the lady back to his apartment, at that point, do either of you know that that's Misty Knight? Because I didn't think that was Misty Knight at that point.
Not a clue at that point.
Yeah, but they also don't let you know that. Right.
But I just didn't know if maybe you had read casting or saw that this actress was going to be. You know what I mean? There are ways that things you're not supposed to know. But yeah, it caught me by surprise, and I liked it. And in fact, even when they start showing her with Raphael Scarfe, and I recognized that name from the comics, and I knew that that's a friend and associate of Misty Knight's, it started to click. But then he called her something like Detective Hooper, and he's making a joke about her playing basketball. But then I think, well, maybe this is like the daughter of that John Ritter character from that TV show Hooper. I still wasn't convinced it was Misty Knight till she pointed at the initials on the court and they said MK.
Or no one has made a Hooper reference, and I'm going to guess 25 years. So good on you, Leslie.
Oh, man. Rest in peace, John Ritter.
I was thinking she was Richard Dreyfuss's daughter.
Oh, yeah.
That's a Jaws reference for you kids out there. All right, moving on.
Oh, man. But anyway.
Welcome to Old Man Radio, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
When he takes her back to her apartment, though, I got to say something, man. I shouldn't say something, but I got to say something.
All righty.
When she took that tight dress off and Luke Cage gets, I don't know, let's say 2 helpings of chowder out of those buckets. Were either of you guys wondering if CGI was involved? Because my goodness, that actress is amazing. She looks like a manga character.
Here's the thing, man, and we've seen it for many a Netflix series now. Marvel will not shy away from some of the sexy and stuff, and I like that, just because it feels like, because we're not really tripping into, maybe light R, especially with the violence, but you're straddling that PG-13 R line with all the Netflix stuff, and I like that they're willing to go out on a limb and kind of do that. And I just think from all aspects, I think it lends to a much better show.
Yeah. And to answer your question, Bruce, I did not notice because I am a butt man.
Well, that was enough to convert you, man. I'm telling you that if it was a picture of someone who looked just like her, you would have said it was an absurd drawing. I think they hired Liefeld to draw her in that episode. I don't know, but I was not expecting that, and I was kind of glad that they dressed her modestly for the most part in the rest of the show, because it would have been hard to concentrate otherwise. But anyway,
well, first of all, that Liefeld didn't draw that scene because there was background in it,
and I'm sure at some point we saw her feet.
Yeah, and Luke Cage wasn't caressing her while he had a giant cannon on his shoulder.
We love you.
Oh, baby, what's in all those pouches?
I got to go through all these pouches today. No, but that was a great scene, and I really, because of what we've seen in Jessica Jones at the same time too, I'm just like, be careful, lady, he's gonna tear you apart.
Yeah, man. And at this point, I'm still not certain if this is post-Jessica or pre-Jessica, so I gave him a pass on this one. But then later, I changed my mind on it.
He's like, there ain't no ring on that finger. You shut up.
But, in episode 2, there's a guy that Cottonmouth is looking for, and the police are looking for. He's stolen money from Cottonmouth, so he goes to Pop's barbershop to hide out, to lay low, try to arrange a parlay, because Pop says that his barbershop is Switzerland, and it's sort of a non-aggressive place, and they can arrange for a talk. But Turk, of course, goes and messes everything up because it's Turk after all, and he lets Cottonmouth know about Chico's location, and one of Chico's underlings goes to handle it, and it turns into a massacre. He just opens up with 2 automatic guns. I guess they're made by Justin Hammer, but he opens up with his 2 automatic weapons and just demolishes everything in the shop, kills everyone except for Luke and this little boy that Luke was shielding, whose mother, I think, was interested in getting coffee with Luke.
He doesn't like coffee.
Very much so. She was interested in getting coffee.
Oh, what was it that Pop said? I can quote Pops, and then it doesn't make me sound as bad. But Pop said, "You might not like coffee, but I know you'd like something hot and black," or something like that to him.
Something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's one of those lines. But anyway, so that's kind of the big thing. And what I wanted to talk about this is, after he goes and just shoots the place up, and then he goes back to report to Cottonmouth, and he says, yeah, it was like Django Unchained, Quentin Tarantino up in here. And I thought maybe that's the showrunner kind of taking a stab at Tarantino and his kind of appropriation of some language that, like we kind of said before, maybe doesn't work when it's coming from Tarantino for some people.
See, I don't know. And that's to me, that's an interesting subject. That's an entire podcast in and of itself. But I think that's also like hey, I've seen something in movies and I feel like that's, something that I need to aspire to, as opposed to, like, hey, I'm, taking real lives here. But the big thing, because Tarantino at some point had said, now there's been a lot of you've probably seen him on Facebook or something, people, but there's a lot of real clickbaity titles out there, headlines from comic book websites and going, Quentin Tarantino hates the new Luke Cage. And when you actually click and read the actual article and stuff, it turns out years ago, right around Pulp Fiction time and everything, Tarantino was a huge Luke Cage fan and wanted to do a Luke Cage movie and write it in the 70s and stuff like that, but his friends had convinced him that probably that wouldn't be the best idea for some whatever reason, right? So everybody's taking that as oh, he hates the current Luke Cage, and it's got nothing to do with that. But, it's... I think that's more of a guy who just sees some cool stuff in movies and thinks hey, this is what I'm gonna help. It's not real life to him.
Yeah, I think there still might have been something about calling Tarantino out by name, though, because they could have went a lot of ways with it. They could have went Scarface. They could have went, other references that would have worked just as well. I still think there's something to it. Well,
here's the thing. In Django, that's more about a black man doing that.
Okay,
that's
sure.
That's the biggest thing to me, is that it's a black man going in and laying waste to the area.
Look, you have a choice when you're writing this stuff where you want to go with it, and clearly they're influenced by Django Unchained. Some of the shots they've taken look like a Western. It's just on a city street instead of with a saloon and blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. It's a choice. They chose that for a reason. It's not just happenstance that they use Django Unchained. It's for a reason.
Yeah, I would have liked it if he just would have said, I went all Starship Troopers on them like they were a bunch of bugs.
And then everyone goes, what's Starship Troopers again?
But anyway,
he went all Jim Cotta on them.
There you go.
Yeah. And there was also a nice little throwaway line there, too, when Genghis Khani and her husband offered to hire Luke Cage to protect them at the restaurant. He goes, no, I'm not for hire. Kind of, a nice turn on the 70s blaxploitation origin of the character, where that's what he was called, was hero for hire.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like it that they say, this is going to be in a more noble direction than what was created by the man back in the day.
And I'd be
little fan service. I liked it.
And also making a statement that, this is going to have some fan service, but we're going to do it right.
And who knows? We could. There's always chance for an offshoot series of where it's just like, hey, they can each have their own series and they do hero for hire as well. I don't know.
That would be good, I guess. But, everybody loved Pops. Good guys, bad guys. In Harlem, in their neighborhood, everybody loved Pops, including Cottonmouth. So he throws that guy off the roof. And that, I guess that's kind of where the second episode ends. The biggest thing I kind of wanted to get your take on was the Tarantino comments. Any other big moments from episode 2 you want to mention?
There's a couple, but I have a question for you first, which is, after the first episode, if I were to ask you, hey, what's the over-under on Pop surviving this series, what would you have said?
I would have said low, man. He's not going to survive this.
Yeah, it's... I don't want to say it's obvious from the beginning, but he just seems like too good of a character to kind of keep around, and it feels like, and again, it's where what's smart about this is that you have to have some sort of motivating, factor.
And there are influences that are like direct influences, like a property you watched and you liked, and you're trying actively to maybe emulate that a little bit. But then there's such like big forces that whether you want to or not, you're just affected by it because everything is. And I think that, we're in a phase of dramatic television where it's like this Game of Thrones thing where people have to die, beloved people have to die. And I think Pops was, one of those guys here.
I think
there was just no way. There was no. I mean, from the first episode, I was like, "Man, what's the over/under on that guy living?"
I think shows these days have to do stuff like that, and the reason why is because when you get into a world of where everyone is safe, there becomes no drama. There's no drama in it. And
Marvel, kill Pops, but if he was a white guy, you'd just send him to Tahiti and bring him back with a robot hand.
That's probably true. But but to have the nerve to end up, killing people and stuff is pretty good. And I think more shows need stuff like that because, when you watch, XYZ show, and I'll grant Walking Dead for this, at least they've, maybe not some of the bigger characters, but a decent amount of people they've killed off. And I kind of applaud that because it's letting people realize, hey, it all can't keep going on forever. And it puts a little bit more drama on the scenes that you're watching. So I applaud that.
Agreed. So there's a couple of things about episode 2. One, this is the episode where I learned that Luke Cage is from Savannah, Georgia originally, which I didn't know. I didn't know much of the history of this character, to be honest with you.
Well, that's a TV show contrivance. He's from Harlem in the comics.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's how he joined the Rivals.
Oh, okay.
I guess not enough street gangs in Savannah back in the 70s.
Probably not.
But was Seagate in the South in the books,
Seagate
though, right?
was in Georgia. That's where he got sent because it was like, come on, man, this is in the blaxploitation era. So if your black antagonist is imprisoned, of course it's going to be in the South.
Well, I mean,
they send him miles from home down to Seagate.
I mean, I can say that, but at the same time, when people just go where are you from? I mean, I was born in Tennessee, but I lived the majority of my life in South Carolina. So I'll say South Carolina because that's pretty much where I grew up at. So that may be more hey, I've spent most of my time there. I don't know. I'm trying to give them the best out I can.
Yeah. I don't know that we have a good out for that. It's just a new direction and it works. I'm not complaining about it, but it is different from the comic book lore just because Sean had asked about the character himself.
Yeah. The next thing I want to talk about is Misty Knight's, the way that she looks at crime scenes is a nice touch to me. Where she is reliving the crime scene through looking at photographs of the crime scene. That's a really nice touch too, to me. And it's a good way of making it a little more science fiction-y without having to do any special effects.
Yeah, I like it that they didn't try to explain it, that she was dropped on her head in a pit of chemicals as a kid or something. I'm glad it was just a regular ability that she was really good at.
It's just
thing she does.
It's visually, it's interesting, and honestly, it's very comic booky too.
Yes, totally agree.
Because that's what you would have a comic book character do, is kind of walk through the scene and give some sort of a narrative as kind of a ghost-like figure, if you will, going, hey, here's what I kind of see without seeing, so to speak.
And I think it's really well done too, because the first time it happens, it faked me out. Then the second time it happens, it faked me out again because they don't hit us over the head with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It sneaks up on you again. So I liked how they dealt with that. But I do hope that eventually I do get to see that actress with the robot arm.
Well, I mean, we get a possible reference to it, which I liked at a later point. So that may be in the future. You never know.
That's for next week. Yeah.
The with this contrivance, I mean, and that's what it is. It's a contrivance. It's a plot contrivance. It's basically the same thing that Vincent D'Onofrio used to do on the old Law and Order show that he was on, when he would tilt his head. You knew when he tilted his head that he figured out the crime, like he figured out everything that happened. And I mean, that's an hour Dick Wolf show. Like that's like we got to wrap this thing up. And every time he tilts his head, it.
Or Columbo just going, hey, what about that one more thing?
Hey, like when Dr. Strange pretends to be Sherlock Holmes and goes to his mind palace. Same idea.
Exactly. The next thing is, there is no way that there were not crew shirts that were given out at the end of this series of this first season that don't have Pop's Barbershop on them.
Oh,
yeah.
That absolutely happened. And I want one.
I'll tell you, I'm watching this whole thing, and I go, man, they are missing out on an opportunity to open up a Pop's Barbershop, and have it set dressed exactly like the show and everything, and just charge outrageous prices for haircuts and get just a boatload of money.
And what do you guys think about the chess player Bobby Fish? I mean, I tell me, guys, would it be rude for me to say he kind of made me think of like a black Abraham Lincoln?
Well, he's got that
beard, man.
He's got a beard. He's got kind of a longer face and everything, very very Lincoln-esque. No, I can see that.
Okay,
and he's wise, but I love the idea of going through and being able to kind of use just the guy who's playing chess and the art of chess, the game of chess, to be able to kind of illustrate what's going on. So it's not just like, hey, there's another thing of here's a dude that sits in the barbershop playing chess with everybody. We're also going to sit here and use that. Again, it's something else that's just extra smart.
And do either one of you think Bobby Fish is the name on his birth certificate?
No, absolutely not.
But why not? I think it's
maybe that's why he likes chess, because his name was so close to Bobby Fischer. But
they should have named him something like Old Dale Splitter, like something like that.
Oh man. But yeah, and he also, not only does he play chess, he does the taxes. That comes into play in the third episode when he tells Luke that the barbershop's gone if they don't have money to pay the bills, because he did Pop's taxes for years. So I like it. He's this guy in the shadows. He's like the anti-Turk. He's just sort of there, but he actually helps people instead of being a buffoon like Turk.
The anti-Turk.
Yeah,
he's the one I felt most sorry for in this entire series, because every time something gets back on track, something goes to derail it, and I just see him just go, "Oh, come on!"
Well, he's also the one who has to do the real work.
Yeah,
like he's the one who has to completely remake the barbershop, and he's always got to clean up people's blood from that place. Like, he's the one doing the actual work.
Well, I'm just mopping up Pop's blood. You go out and do whatever it is you're doing, Luke.
No, please, by all means, be the big hero. I'll just be here making sure everything's okay.
I'm over here spackling up the walls and painting them back to their original color. And do you know how hard it is to find that baseboard that's still in this 1970s wood? It doesn't happen very easily, my friend.
You going to be going by that Lowe's on 94th? Because I could use some spackle.
Don't tell me you only shop at Home Depot. Lowe's has the kind I like.
Ugh.
But I like it though. Bobby Fish in the shadows. He's the one whose guidance and counsel gives Nick Cage the idea that
Luke Cage, not Nick Cage. Come on now.
What?
You said Nick Cage, so I just wanted to correct you.
I'm sorry. I'm going to do that a lot.
Hey, everybody.
For good reason.
A lot of people who have been talking to me about watching Luke Cage do that a lot. Actually, that's not rare.
Well, it's on purpose. I mean, Nicholas Coppola picked that last name for a reason.
That's true.
But anyway,
being the strong black man that he is, that's what he decided.
Yeah, he wanted to be Luke Cage, so he became Nick Cage.
Yeah.
But Luke Cage, instead of taking on Cottonmouth directly, he's going to take his money out. So he goes and starts taking out these safe houses. And then we get this nice scene where he takes down this new complex called Crispus Attucks. And I was glad. I was like, wow, they made me wait 3 whole episodes for a fight in a hallway, but we finally get it.
Also, Luke loses both his jobs on the same day.
Who hasn't been there?
That'll hurt a guy.
I mean, when the guy from one job kills your boss at the other, you kind of know it's not going to work out for you.
That is true.
Well,
You're very right about that.
I guess this under-the-table paycheck is not going anywhere.
That's what
Also,
we're trying.
When he goes after Crispus Attucks, like there is something so great about seeing a couch get thrown through a second-story window. Isn't that just the best?
And I love the way the show starts off with no context. You see the couch fly out the window, then you get to watch the episode, then you go back and see how it happened. I like stuff like that.
There were a couple of Breaking Bad moments in there, yeah.
And then, after the really, really awesome roundup of the criminals, and he just knocks them all out. And I love this character, and I love that instead of trying to up the level on the choreography and the martial arts because of who Nick Cage is and what his abilities are, we just get something that looks more like what would really happen if a bulletproof, super strong guy fought a whole bunch of people. There's no flipping and turning. You're just there's some scenes where he like literally just pops people on the head with 2 fingers and they pass out. I love that kind of stuff.
That's so good. But
and the thing with the car door, man, to start the attack is awesome.
But I also like the fact that, and they go back and say it, he didn't kill anybody.
Yet
no one was dead. At that point, it's just like, hey, he just went through. He knocked all these people out. Nobody was actually dead. They were probably pretty badly injured, but I don't think anyone was dead. And
7 of them can only eat through a straw from this point forward, but technically they're not dead.
See, that's
they wish they were dead, but they're not.
There you go.
Yeah. And he only takes 1 bag of money, enough money to pay for Pops's place, and leaves all the rest for the cops to go pick up, which in this city probably would have been about the same as giving it back to the villains, at least in this fictional version of the city. I don't want to make disparaging comments about the actual city. But anyway, he gets hungry. You work up an appetite taking out I'm still not exactly sure what Crispus Attucks was supposed to be. A community center at one time, then at other times they made it sound like it was a housing projects that was in development. So I'm not sure exactly what the place was going to be, but he took it out, got all the $7 million that Mariah was hiding there into the public eye, work up an appetite, and he goes to eat at Genghis Khan's, where absolutely nothing could go wrong at this point.
Of course not.
Well, Bruce, to go backwards for a second, Crispus Attucks, there's a building like that in Charlotte where it's like a community center for African Americans, but there's also like a business aspect to it and a political aspect to it. It's more of like, like-minded people being able to speak seriously about, events and stuff. And
we have something similar here, but the way they talk about it in the show at times made it sound like what you're describing, but that at other times they called it the Attucks Project. But I might have thought they said the Attucks Projects, one of those sorts of things. Right. So I wasn't real clear, but yeah, my initial idea, we've Carter G. Woodson, the man who started Black History Month, is from Huntington. So he has a nice community center here. And that's the idea I got at first, but then they kind of were talking about it like it was something different, I thought. Just wasn't sure, but it was definitely built like a fortress.
Gotcha.
And then Adam, what do you think about how things go down while Luke's finally getting to eat him some, I don't know, whatever, maybe General Tso's chicken? That's my favorite. I'm going to assume that's what he's eating.
That's a good one. First of all, I mean, I like how, because at this point, if I think where I'm at the same place as you, they've had kind of the same, they've had interaction before between him and his landlady and everything. And to see their reaction with the two of them at this moment and everything, and how that's changed because he's helped her out and everything, was really great. Another just super thing of like, you don't have to have this moment, but you did.
And then the rocket launcher comes out.
And
just so good.
Just as soon as you're like,
I love stuff that's just a touch nuts, and that was a touch nuts.
I see him up there, and I just go, well, this guy's just going to try to assassinate him. I'm like, well, that's messed up. It's not going to work. And then I literally out loud just, holy crap! This guy just pulls out a rocket launcher. I'm like, okay, well, this guy, he is not messing around.
So good. So good.
To quote the Anchorman, that escalated quickly in that scene.
No kidding. I was just like, whoa, okay, all right, well, that's where we're going.
And I love it that Cottonmouth pulled the trigger himself, too. I always like those nice little touches.
Yeah, me too, man. And this also episode 3 is where we learn that the Frank Whaley character, Misty Knight's partner, is also on the take.
Yeah.
And it's funny, man, because the second Frank Whaley shows up on screen in the show, again, I was like, over under that they bring in Frank Whaley because he's a dirty cop. Like, what's the over under on that?
And you probably would have been able to take my money on that just because Scarfe in the comics isn't that bad of a guy. And I guess he redeems himself a little bit in this show. But I felt like when he choked Chico to death, with his necktie, that was not something I expected from the character Scarfe. Not that Scarfe's exactly a cornerstone of the Marvel Universe, but it caught me off guard.
Just by casting Frank Whaley, though, they tipped their hat to me. It was like, oh, okay, I get it.
See, I thought about 50-50. I was just like, I wasn't overly surprised, but I was just enough to go like, oh, good for you, television program.
And that rocket launcher attack sets us up in episode 4 for what's probably my favorite of these 7 episodes that we're going to talk about, because that's when we get all the flashbacks of Nick Cage in prison. And I'm a real sucker for these kind of stories, and I liked it. What did you guys think about episode 4? We get sort of the B story of him digging out of the rubble to save Genghis Khan's life, but we get all these flashbacks to Seagate. And I was really, really enjoying this, and I like it because they didn't miss any of the major beats in Luke Cage's origin story, but they still told it in a way that I wasn't sure what was going to happen next, which that's a hard thing to do, and I appreciate that they did it so well.
That part was great. I will say this. It is the absolute worst beard wig combo in television history. It is so bad. I think that they probably went to like a Morris Costumes equivalent and like just slapped it on him. It's so bad.
Have you ever seen Ice Pirates, Sean?
I have seen Ice Pirates.
Because there's one scene where they're like in a time warp and everybody's hair starts growing and their beards start growing. And I felt like maybe they went to the prop master and got that leftover 1980s wig and beard combo from Ice Pirates.
It's so bad that it was distracting. That's how bad it was.
At least they give the point of like, well, he stopped bathing.
I love it when something that's otherwise completely competently made has this really oddball moment that I can just enjoy. For some reason, I like those things. I like the beard. The more ridiculous and ludicrous it got, the better I liked it.
Because it did. It got worse. It got bigger.
So, and we learn also in episode 4 that Shades was in Seagate with Luke Cage, with Carl Lucas. Mm-hmm. And this is the moment again where I don't get me wrong, I absolutely love this show. I love this show, but they get into 2 different fights while they're in prison together.
Mm-hmm. And you guys may not have noticed this, but the guy that was with Shades was Comanche, the bow and arrow gang member.
Oh, well, here's the part. Here's the part to get to my point here. They get into 2 different fights. And Shades doesn't recognize Luke Cage, right? And
really dark sunglasses, man.
Well,
and with the hair and beard gone.
Here is my note. Here is what I wrote down. I got into a fight with a guy in Vermont when I was 18. All right. Now, if that dude walked in the door right now, even with 25 years, I would guarantee I would know who that dude is, even right now. So how does Shades not know immediately, oh, hey, it's the biggest dude I've ever seen in my life who just walked in?
Man, I got in a fight with a Walmart greeter this morning. Wouldn't even recognize her on the bus next to me at this point.
But you didn't get into a bloody fist fight with the woman.
I was bleeding a little bit. Do
you know what Pruno does to brain cells?
Yeah, man. And I imagine Shades had like retinitis pigmentosa. That's why he had to wear those sunglasses all the time. He probably doesn't see so well.
Wouldn't you know Bruce be dropping the science on to just go like, oh yeah, well here's a medical crap that can totally justify my stuff.
Maybe he's got prosopagnosia. And then again, there was the whole beard and hair thing, you know?
God bless you.
Man.
If it weren't for this hair and beard, I wouldn't know who this cat is.
Oh, he's not wearing a fake beard and wig right now. I don't recognize him.
Man,
there he is, boys. Knock the fake hair off his head.
That's what you should do for Halloween, Sean. You should do the big hair, big beard version of Luke Cage for Halloween.
I totally agree with bullet holes through a hoodie. Absolutely.
Well, you gotta have the orange jumpsuit for that version.
Oh, right.
$29.95.
Oh, man. But anyway, so we get all this story, and we get to see Reva again, somebody we hadn't really seen since Jessica Jones. And we get to see the story of their relationship.
We didn't get to see her all that much in Jessica Jones.
Yeah, but we get to see the blossoming of that relationship, which really struck me as odd at first. I thought, wow, that's pretty unprofessional of a prison psychologist to marry an escaped inmate, but they explain it well.
Yeah, they do it well enough, and I also, I forget exactly when it kind of happens, but we do get a reveal later on, and just for the sake of, I can't remember which episode it ends up doing it on because they do such a great job with the back and forth on everything.
Yeah, it's in the second half of the series where we get the reveal.
But there's a reveal later on that I'm just like, oh, very, very good on you, a program.
Very good program.
But, we get to see the prison, the underground prison gladiator fights. And I got to say, I kind of enjoyed some of that stuff, too. It made me think a little bit of the glory days of Kimbo Slice there with some of the beardy maneuvers.
I don't know that I put that together, but he does have a very Kimbo Slice kind of like, air about him, no doubt.
If you put a beard on a giant black guy, he's going to look like Kimbo Slice.
Well, he's got super, broad shoulders and everything. He's not, but Kimbo Slice is shorter. Was shorter.
Oh, he's got to be shorter.
R.I.P. Kimbo Slice.
Yeah, man. I guess his heart gave out on him. But anyway, I like those prison fights. I thought they were fun. I mean,
as much as beating another human being nearly to death can be.
Yeah, knowing it's all fake makes it fun.
Now we talked about him real quick. I want to just throw in here because I'm sure we'll be talking about him throughout these 2 episodes. Is Theo Rossi is really, really great in this show. I think
he's good. Yeah,
he's a guy who's kind of shown up in a lot of things. He's like in Son of Anarchy. He was in the movie we reviewed on the Film Find a couple weeks ago, and he always just plays a really scummy guy, but he's really, really good at it.
Yeah,
he plays like likable scummy. I mean, all I know him from is Sons of Anarchy, and I liked him there, and I like him here.
Yeah, but he definitely has a good dirtbag quality to him. Which is interesting too, because he's not like he's a heavy without actually being like a physical heavy.
Yeah. He's the guy that's not going to be cast as a Nobel Prize winning physicist.
No, but like, but you see him, and yet despite his kind of lack of size and everything, you still feel that he's a dangerous dude.
Yeah. But we do get to see though. Eventually, he gets beat up again by Shades and Comanche, but this time they have things like crowbars and brass knuckles and stuff. So he gets beaten almost, but not entirely, to death. And Reva kind of pleads for Dr. Burstein to save Luke by putting him in this bath. And we get a pretty comic book accurate thing where the prison doctor puts him in the experimental bath of chemicals and leaves the room. And then in comes Rackin, just twisting the knobs like a lunatic and drooling and laughing maniacally as he's convinced it's going to be bad instead of good.
As one does.
If I had a nickel for every time I tried to sabotage a prison experiment. But anyway...
There's a very episode 3 Revenge of the Sith thing happening for me.
You know what? Yeah, exactly. It's the Frankenstein's monster moment.
Where is Reva?
Chinese translation said, "Do not want." But and I think it's right here, man, where he finally turns into Luke Cage. Don't we see him break out in this episode, Adam?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it happens now.
And, man, when we see him break out, we get that moment that you speculated boldly we would get at him. We get to see the tiara, and they did it really cleverly.
Yeah, they did it. They did it well. And not only did they do that, and then when we finally break out, he's going through, and the man's got to get himself some clothes. So what's he grab? A big old yellow shirt, puts that on, gets some
Sir, you will
pants
call
and
that
everything.
a blouse.
That's a blouse. No doubt. And he gets
doing the whole David Banner from the TV show The Incredible Hulk thing where he's taking the clothes off the clothesline.
It's so good. Yeah. But I also like at the same point looks in the mirror and just goes, "You look ridiculous," and then just takes it off.
And not only the tiara, but he has the big metal wristbands on too.
Yeah.
Very Bronze Age Luke Cage
so
look
good.
to him. I loved it. That was bold.
But again,
great fan service.
Exactly.
Great fan service.
It's give us a little bit and then just, and then right on out. That's all we need, man.
Because I was really wondering how they were possibly going to be able to work out any reference to that costume in the show. I had given up on it at this point, and then when I see it, I'm doing the fist pump in the air, and I'm screaming at my kids to come look at the show. They're not allowed to watch just for a moment.
Look at this crazy get up.
I'm going to put this at the same level of Captain America: First Avenger, where you see the costume that you say that you want to see him in, and you see how ridiculous it looks, and they're like, "See, this is why we're not dressing him like this." And
it's like, here it is. There's your service. See how it's silly, but you like it though, right? Good deal. Moving on.
And then in an so subtle artistic moment, they have him break out of prison just as he breaks out of the rubble, rescuing Connie there under Genghis Khan's collapsed building.
Again, just a nice parallel writing there. And again, I applaud all these people, because it seems, in the world that we live in, it seems like the obvious thing to not just go ahead and just do the entire origin up front and everything, because of the cinematic stuff that we've been doing so far, but to just do it and do it right and have it just land as well as it does, it takes some talent to do that.
Yeah, man. And he comes out of the shadows. He looks at the news reporters and he says, "I'm Luke Cage."
Yes.
He's not going to hide in the shadows anymore. He's going to become a more open hero, I guess you could say.
Had his own Iron Man moment, man. I loved it.
And then and I guess for the interest of time, I'll just summarize maybe 3 points here on episode 5. We find out that that Shades has access to some hammer weapons that have bullets made from Chitauri technology, that they got after the fallout of the Avengers, that are called Judas bullets that could potentially kill Luke Cage. So we finally get our kryptonite for this guy for the series, right?
Yeah, and I still love the fact that they just peppered in there. Again, it's not something that you got to tell anybody, but just the mention of Justin Hammer made me squeal like a little girl.
Me too, man. I really hope that he comes back somewhere, because who doesn't love Sam Rockwell?
Man, only if they'll bring back Mickey Rourke with him.
No. Strongly disagree. Is that a bubble I can mark? Strongly disagree.
Yes, that's the 7. And then I guess, we get, because I was starting to ask myself this in episode 1, probably, definitely by episode 2, I started thinking, this show is going to have the Superman problem. The problem people always talk about with Superman is he either has to fight some godlike alien being, or else you just don't feel any threat. So with the introduction of the Judas bullet, I did feel that threat. And then also the second point on episode 5, maybe to be worthy of discussion, is that Claire Temple shows up. Mm. And this sets the timeline straight for me, because up until this point, I'm still not sure, is this pre-fighting crime with Jessica or post? And it makes it clear it's post.
Yeah, and I do like the little bit of explanation that she gives, where she's talking to her mom, and she goes, "I think what I'm going to do from this point forward is help out all these superhero guys." And it's pretty good.
And it makes it obvious, which it probably should have been obvious by now. But to me, now that we got 3 different series with her showing up, she is the through thread to all these stories. And I think she is going to be the hero in the final episode of The Defenders when it finally comes out.
Oh, man, I hope you're right. That'd be great.
But yeah, she is like she's the Nick Fury for the street level New York City crime kind of thing.
Now that's the best comparison.
Rosario Dawson is so dang good in this role. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's one of those things where it's like, she's cast because of who she is in real life or whatever, but man, she's good.
She's awesome. She is awesome. And I also like it when Luke says, "Hey, do you want to get some coffee?" And she says, "I'm not going to sleep with you."
So good. So good.
He's like, "I didn't even go there. Come on now."
But I do like that. But she's the one who has the rapport with all the individuals involved in the world of the Defenders. So she is the one who could be the Nick Fury and assemble them into a cohesive unit. And I think she's the through thread, and she's so good, and her performances have been so good. I think they're only going to give her more to do, as much as she's willing to do. And I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up being the one who saves the day in the Defenders.
Well, let me give you, okay. You've just sparked it in me.
You done did it, Bruce.
What's the over-under that Claire survives the first Defenders?
Oh, I'm going to say, how do we do an over-under on this? Like 0.5 is the over-under. So I think she'll survive. You have to take 0 to beat me.
I think that it is a high probability that she does not survive the end of the Defenders.
Oh man, I hope not. But I guess we've officially got a bet then. We'll say 10 gold dragons on that.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, let's bet dragons.
But I kind of like, as much as I don't want the character to go away, I kind of like that as also being a thing that either like may unite them or set them on some other different kind of path. Story-wise, I like where you're going though, Sean. It makes sense.
It's Joss Whedon. I mean, that's how Joss Whedon always that's how he ties it all together all the time.
Yeah.
Now, I'd rather Turk be the one that dies, but that's just me.
No, I don't know that that's going to be.
Now, the whole reason for episode 5 and what probably warrants the most discussion is episode 5 is when the dueling eulogies happen at Pop's funeral. Cottonmouth gets up and gives his eulogy, and then he's followed by Luke Cage, who wins the crowd over. What are your guys' impressions on those dueling eulogies?
Well, I always like the one-upsmanship when you gotta just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna tell you more about what's good.
Well, it's one of those things where I'm going to beat you in the streets. I'm going to beat you in the boardroom. I mean, that's basically what this is, and it's showing you that not only is Luke Cage physically stronger than you, but he's also mentally stronger than you. Yeah, it's a nice touch.
It's like the devil went down in Georgia with public speaking instead of fiddling.
I always thought that the Devil's music was way better.
Oh, I don't know, man. I've met Charlie before. He's pretty good.
Well, Charlie does both. I mean, that's the secret.
You know what? You make a point. But I think the Devil's is mostly the electric guitar you like, not the fiddle playing, because there's that boom, 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 boom. Yeah, way off topic now.
Again,
but
there are things that you're never going to hear anywhere else. We had in now it's Charlie Daniels. What was the other one that we had? Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, we had Dukes of Hazzard.
Look. Let's be fair about this. I mean, there is nothing more awesome than the show. The show is great. The show is so good. But let's be fair. There is nothing that makes me feel whiter and more uncool than watching this show. So, yes, my brain is going to lash out by going to things like Friends and the Charlie Daniels Band. That's just going to happen.
Well, I'm going to keep it real here. The show is written that the crowd is won over by Luke Cage and his eulogy, and they turn on Cottonmouth. But, man, that performance from Ali, when he's given his eulogy, this guy made me want to go to church if he would be a preacher. I'm telling you, this actor is so good, and he delivers this so well that if we were going to keep it real, I would say he won the competition. But, it's the show's written that Luke wins.
Well, you got to go for the closer, man. The closer's always that's where you got to go.
Not always.
Well, in the audience's mind, I don't know.
And then the next episode 6, is when Cottonmouth shoots the crooked cop, and kind of the whole deal in episode 6 is trying to get Scarfe to the police station safely so that he can testify against Cottonmouth and get Cottonmouth locked up. And apparently Scarfe has this little notepad of hand scribbled notes that is important information to help convict Cottonmouth. So we get sort of this race against the clock. Can we get Scarfe to make a statement before he gets killed? And they're in the catering van that belongs to Soledad Temple, and being chased by the bad guys in the Escalade, and then Misty Knight kind of shows up at the end. This, I thought, was a pretty fun sequence here.
One of the things that they do really well on this show is, and the only thing I can relate it to is the whitest thing that I can think of right now, which is Game of Thrones, where they have this nice thing where you have a down episode so that they can ratchet it up and you care about these characters and its character development. This is one of the high octane episodes, and it's at the perfect time because it's ratcheting up tension, it's making you care about characters, and then whammo, they're going full throttle during this episode, and I love it. I love the pacing of this show. I think they did a very good job up till this point. It's very good.
And I love it when the bad guys open up the back of the van when they think they've finally gotten Claire and Scarfe and Luke, and there's just the big shredded metal going directly into the wall of the building next to it because Luke's punched his way. And it also made me wonder just how convenient it was whenever Luke had to punch through a random wall. It was always in an unoccupied room. Like, what if there'd been a family in there trying to play Pictionary or something? I think that would have added to this show a little bit.
Or some Parcheesi, the Royal Game of India. But you're right. Like, if they, and actually it would add to it, wouldn't it? Where he punches through a wall and there's like some family like, dude, we're just eating dinner.
Or like he punches through a wall and that just happens to be where somebody has their easel set up working on a painting and he punches right through the painting at the same time.
I like that.
Oh man!
Finally, my masterpiece.
They're building a mural. They're painting a mural of Kool-Aid Man, and then he busts through the wall.
That's very Family Guy of you. I like that.
Luke Cage. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, sweet Christmas.
But they make it out of the building, out of the pursuit. Luke, full-on Power Man, stops the Escalade as it's coming, and then Misty Knight shows up just in time to get involved and try to get Scarfe back to the station to make a statement. But he has that that sort of cliche dramatic death where he has to say his last meaningful words of being sorry, and then he
his Yoda death.
Let's go of life.
The Yoda death effect, where it's
I was thinking very much. There is another Skywalker. I was thinking that.
There is another Luke Cage.
Would have been more realistic if he was babbling incoherently, then somebody smelled his bowels had loosened, and then he stopped breathing. That would have been a little more accurate. But I like how they did it.
What were his last words? Humana. What?
You got your peanut butter in my chocolate.
Was that about race relations? What was he talking about?
This guy's really deep.
Wow.
Man.
Let's ponder that for a while.
But episode 7, going into episode 7, this episode is the perfect place to stop if we're going to break this up into 2 podcasts, because it felt so much like a cliffhanger. I mean, this really sort of wrapped up the first story arc and pushes us into the story arc. I can't tell you how awesome I thought episode 7 was and how unexpected so many of these parts of episode 7 were for me.
That's why
I was completely shocked at the outcome of this, because I did not see this coming so early in the series,
This was all like season finale stuff that's happening at the mid-season. I mean, the perfect mid-season cliffhanger, arranged perfectly, like 2 separate story arcs in a grander tale. It really feels almost like we got 2 seasons of Luke Cage to me because of how everything pivoted so much on episode 7.
People that I know that were watching, they were just like, oh, so good. Like episode 3, oh, so good. I'm just like, 7. Just wait till 7.
Yeah.
Because that's the time where everybody goes, what?
And I'd like to know the percentage of people who, when episode 7 ended, did not immediately begin episode 8, because this would be a hard one to put it down for the night.
Yeah.
It's funny, man. Actually, I didn't realize how far into the show I was at episode 7. I actually had to pause it and go, what episode are we on right now? This seems like it's done.
And this is where we get the flashbacks to our villains. We get the flashback to what Cottonmouth was like as a kid and how, why he plays the piano so much, why he's so involved in the music at Harlem's Paradise, the club he runs. And I love that they show him as this, I'll just say, less than tough appearing kid. I really like how they showed the transformation that had to happen.
I agree, and it makes that character so much deeper and so much sadder. Really, it's a smart move. Is Cottonmouth? I'm sorry for putting you on the spot here, Bruce, but is Cottonmouth? I know Cottonmouth's a part, like he's a bad guy in Luke Cage, but is this his background?
No, Cottonmouth's not related to Mariah. Mama Mabel is something just for the TV show, the best I can tell. But Cottonmouth is just another. I think he's just a drug dealer in Harlem. You know what I mean? He's already a big deal criminal before Luke Cage ever becomes Power Man.
Man, hand it to the people at Netflix. They're taking these properties, but they're also giving back to these properties, because now Luke Cage. I mean, his rogues gallery is pretty great.
Oh yeah, man. And just think, in season 2, if they bring in some of my favorites from the comics, like the Disco Devil and Cockroach Hamilton, it's going to be great.
Cockroach Hamilton. If I don't see Disco Devil, there's going to be hell to pay.
But we get the flashback. A little bit of Mariah's backstory is given to us. Also, we see that there was something inappropriate between her uncle Pistol Pete or whatever, and Mariah going on there, and that's part of I guess the family's animosity against Uncle Pete, and then Uncle Pete was working with the Puerto Ricans. We see that Mabel has no problems with racketeering, but she's very opposed to drug dealing, which is something that you feel like was passed on to Mariah. I really liked how much we got to learn about Mariah and Cottonmouth here.
That has to come from some truth, right? Because it seems like even in, in your standard mafia movies, there are the older, that older crew that has problems with dealing drugs. They have no problem with, hookers and running guns and booze and stuff, but that they have a problem selling drugs, that has to come from somewhere. You got to think. Yeah, that happens a lot.
You see that in a lot of mafia movies and stuff like that.
I mean, it goes back to The Godfather. That their problem with the Turk was that he was a heroin dealer, right?
Yep. I don't want anything to do with these drugs.
And then, in The Godfather, they promise only to sell it to people who live in Harlem. Or, they actually say something like that. Like, it's okay as long as you only sell it to minorities and not to the white folks.
Yeah, essentially.
So builds to this conspiracy. But anyway, didn't expect to see so much backstory, but I really didn't expect what was going to happen when we get back to the present day and Mariah confronts Cottonmouth at the club.
Man. What a nice turn. And, it's what makes this show so bloody good. This seems to be the theme for me tonight. I would not have bet on that happening. that is out of left field, and they do set it up nice, but I never, it's the against type again, because you have Alfie Woodard as that character, and who would have seen that coming? Wow. Good.
And, I knew eventually she was going to turn from Councilman Dillard to Black Mariah. That's inevitable that has to happen. But I didn't expect that you're going to have a decent character like Cottonmouth, who's a good big bad, an actor who is just working his butt off in the role. And it took some real cojones to get rid of that character-actor combo halfway through your season.
Yeah.
Especially since he's such a highlight of the show. I mean, he's so good. And that they knew what they had. At least by the second episode, they're like, "Oh no!" and we're getting rid of this character. Oh no,
Yeah, I loved him, man. I can't wait to see this actor in more stuff. I'm gonna have to look for him, but then we've been hearing this name without a face. Shades comes in because he's sort of been sent by Diamondback to kind of give Cottonmouth a hand running the city, and Diamondback is the one who's found this Judas bullet. And then just when I didn't expect our big bad guy, who's just kicking his butt in his performance in the show, to die at episode 7. Then next thing you know, Diamondback pulls out his sniper rifle and he hits Luke. I thought it was going to be a near miss. You can't break out the kryptonite halfway through the season, or what's the whole second half of the season going to be about, Yeah. But he gets him, sniper shot to the abdomen. First try, man, just pop, gets him. Down he goes, and I didn't expect that to happen either. I wanted to check and say maybe this is only 8 episodes instead of 13.
Oh man, so good. So such good pacing on this series. Just terrific.
A perfect pivot point at the midseason. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
It's one of those things where, and you're right, it was just kind of going through and going, oh, what next? What next? What next? What next? And that's a sign of a good show, when you're not like going, oh man, we got to review this for the podcast, so I'm gonna have to slog through these things. You just automatically go, I gotta see what's next, and that's when you got something good on your hands.
Yep. I only do that when we're reviewing the cartoons.
Sometimes you're like, oh, for the love of Pete, let's just get through it.
Oh yeah, we get it. The Teen Titans don't like the Justice League right now.
Well, Sean, hate to tell you, but in 2 weeks we're going to review all 11 seasons of Supernatural, so get ready.
Yeah.
Luckily, I've already seen like 5 of them, because it used to be my kid's favorite show.
Oh, okay. I like to call it Not Constantine.
Well, it was, because it's far more successful than Constantine.
Don't tell the people at DC that. So before we, obviously we got a lot more to talk about the second half of the season. We'll do that next week. But this week, we got to figure out how this awesome series relates to our good friend Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, Adam, thank you. I have a prepared statement.
Okay.
I think most people can agree that sometimes real life sucks. Marvel's version of Hell's Kitchen is way cooler than the real-life Hell's Kitchen, and while, yes, Luke Cage, the TV show, takes place in Harlem, this version of Luke Cage was introduced with Jessica Jones in Hell's Kitchen. And in real life, Hell's Kitchen isn't even called Hell's Kitchen anymore. It's called Clinton, named after the former governor of New York, not the woman old white dudes hate that's currently running for president. In real life, Hell's Kitchen started becoming a thing in the 1850s. Irish immigrants escaping the Great Famine found work on the docks and railroads and started building shanty towns. Well, that spot of land would eventually become known as Hell's Kitchen. After the Civil War, tons of people moved to New York City. And since everyone was broke and more than likely a little smelly, they moved to Hell's Kitchen. So things became overcrowded and hot and disgusting pretty quickly. And what happens when everyone's poor and hot and hungry? They become criminals. And those criminals form gangs. Add to that prohibition, and those abandoned buildings that they're all standing around, they become distilleries. To protect their illegal businesses, the gangs completely took over Hell's Kitchen. And the biggest, most violent, and scariest gang at the time was called the Gopher Gang, which lends total credibility to my theory that people sucked at naming things in the old days. The Gopher Gang? Your scary, scary mob is called the Gopher Gang? Anyway, the Gopher Gang was originally run by a dude named One Lung Kieran, whose nickname actually hurts my theory that people don't know how to name things in the old days. Well, he died in 1917 by what I'm sure are completely nonviolent circumstances. The Gopher Gang would get a new leader by the name of Oni the Killer Madden, which is a terrible nickname if you're a doctor. And he would turn his stupidly named gang into a massive 500-member entity. The killer himself would become the most powerful man in New York. Hell's Kitchen will become known as, and I'm quoting here, the most dangerous area on the American continent. Jeez. And that's why people like Stan Lee would eventually write about this part of New York City. Well, actually, Stan Lee would pay people to write about this area of New York City and then take credit for writing it. But it's funny to think that years from now, the kids who grew up watching these awesome Netflix shows will always relate Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and eventually Iron Fist to Hell's Kitchen, because when I was a kid, whenever I thought of Hell's Kitchen, I would think of the first prostitute I ever saw in real life. And I quickly realized that movies and TV shows were lying to us, because in real life, hookers ain't pretty. But by far, and it's not even close, the most famous person to ever come out of Hell's Kitchen is the scourge of self-important film students everywhere, Sylvester Stallone. He was born in Hell's Kitchen in 1946, which officially makes him old as hell. I have trees in my yard that are younger than Sylvester Stallone, and they're big trees. So there you have it, HMPers, this week's Stallone Connection. Now, One Lung and Killer, let's review this television program so I can start enjoying some time with friends and family.
Indeed.
What other rooms do you think they considered before they settled on kitchen? Do you think there was like a Hell's half bathroom? You know, do you think that got bantied around a little bit?
Hell's toilet. Hell's toilet.
Satan's urinal was good.
Hell's mudroom. Stupidest crap ever. All right, so let's get down to it. I think do we want to review the first half or just
we should save
yeah,
let's
review
save it. That's what I was thinking.
Week.
So
I like to hold my review.
Let's save that whole review here and everything. So obviously, I think we've liked it so far. I think we may have some differing things on the second half from what we've kind of talked about previous before the show actually started. So I think next week we're going to get to some real interesting stuff. So if you've liked this show, if you've liked anything that we talked about, if you have your own little comments on Luke Cage and everything, why don't you email us at heromoviepodcast@gmail.com, and that we'd really appreciate that. And it's just gonna, we'll read some stuff on the air. So if you have some interesting comments, throw them our way. So that is it. Next week, we're going to be talking about, obviously the second half of Luke Cage here. But we do want to say that thank you guys to all the people that have helped us out on Patreon this month, patreon.com/HMP. And
Dr. Dan Dew has a lot to say about that next week.
We'll talk a little bit about that next week. And a quick shout out here, because he's going to be our our executive producer for the month. Michael Podorsky, who Sean and I have had a real fun time with. Gotta love Podorsky. Podorsky has dropped us a huge thing. He didn't go on Patreon per se, but he did PayPal us some money and everything. And so he actually has gotten on to he's the highest level donator at this point. And I think honestly it came because he did it twice, and really because PayPal didn't really look like it sent him the right amount of money the first time. So he did it twice. So he's actually sent us more than enough. So he is actually going to be the first recipient of an HMP t-shirt. And this one is going to have, it's a little combination of everything. We'll put it up on the Facebook page. You'll be able to get it on TeePublic starting on Monday. But he's actually going to get his own t-shirt for free. I've got his address and everything, so he's going to be getting that exclusive t-shirt. You too can get that exclusive t-shirt, so keep on the Facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. Like that up there. We're almost at 2,000 likes. We really appreciate that. And, you can get that t-shirt for yourself. It's on sale for 48 hours, so hit up on that and everything. But it's a Kingpin exclusive to HMP and all that kind of good stuff. Until next week, everybody. Sean, where can we find more of your work on the internet? He's dead.
I am on. You can find me at Twitter. Find me on Twitter at Hero Movie Sean.
Okay, and Mr. Leslie, I hear you have a show or two out there.
Yeah, I've got a new episode of Heroes and Villains that's up right now that people might want to check out. And being oh so timely, I'm only like 1 year behind. It's the Jessica Jones episode that I released this morning of Heroes and Villains. And then, of course, we should have some more Chubby Wizard for everybody by Wednesday morning.
Excellent. And we're falling a little bit behind on the Film Find, but that's because Matt's got a lot of things. He's got the job right now. I don't. So... he's working hard on that, but we got more stuff coming. Because of my lack of job, I've seen so many things now, so I have a lot to talk about. But we'll eventually do all that kind of good jazz. So all the links for everything that we do are found in the show notes. And again, we appreciate you guys listening and everything. Everybody that's on the Patreon, everybody that's emailed, you dropped an iTunes review. We thank you guys for all that kind of good stuff. So until next week, when we talk about the second half of Luke Cage, for Sean Keenan, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie. Get better, Blaine.